HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s wife, Cheryl Hines, appeared on The View yesterday to try to plug her upcoming memoir. But the host decided to use her visit to criticize her husband and the Maha movement. Cheryl Hines refused to let the attacks slide.
But the problem, respectfully, is that your husband is the least qualified Department of Health and Human Services head that we've had in history. I think that's a very dangerous.
Why is he less qualified than an economist?
I think that he is less qualified.
He has spent his career studying toxins, studying people's health.
He has also spread a lot of misinformation, a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, and I think it's just a very dangerous thing. I say it with the utmost respect.
Some of it's good and some of it's not. That's the point.
Listen, we all have different views here.
Yes.
And when you say, misinformation, disinformation, we could go back to COVID when...
He's connecting circumcision to autism.
May I finish?
Please.
When Fauci people were saying when you get the vaccine, you cannot transmit COVID. It will stop COVID. And that was disinformation, misinformation.
We were also still learning about it. It was a novel virus we've never encountered.
She had to remind the people of The View that the name of the show is The View because people have different views. Oh, my goodness. The View's Joy Behar thinks Republicans are afraid to come on her show.
I think that we should have more Republicans on the show, but they don't want to come on. They're scared of us. It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene says that she finds the Republican men afraid of powerful women. Well, that may be true of all the political persuasions. But if they would come on this show and they can explain to us what they're trying to do to this country.
Todd.
Harris, I vow to never forget the name of this show. I am clearly outnumbered, and I know it. And I'm not going to do anything But, okay, so they want more Democrats. This from the news division of ABC, where your lead political anchor just cut off the vice president of the United States. So when we see that, we're supposed to assume that the paragons of journalism over there at The View are going to treat a run-of-the-mill Republican better? Why would a Republican go on there if they are not going to be able ever to make their points without being jumped on by all four of them, not just George Stephanopoulos? And my other follow-up on the specific media angle point, do they vow to treat Democrats the same, ask them the tough questions? Because remember, they gave Kamala the softest of softball interviews prior to the election, and she failed that. And some think that that cost her the election. Would you do anything different with Joe? We all know that infamous question. So no, until they clean up their act and operate in a fashion. I mean, I watch you interview Democrats all the time.
I've been on that show and have faced the raptor cage.
But I see you interview Democrats all the time, and you allow them to make their point. You're not attacking them. You're not cutting them off. If they do the same thing, maybe Republicans can go on. But until then, absolutely not.
Emily.
Yeah, I was struck by the grace of Cheryl Hines, who was on there to promote and discuss her memoir, to be faced with questions about her husband. I thought she took it very well and had an articulate and important substantive answer that the rest of the hosts couldn't respond to. There was no response when she said, well, what about this disinformation? What about this misinformation? And I thought her point also, I think there's a lot of barbs slung from that show that aren't based on facts or statistics. And one of them being the qualifications of our Health and Human Services Secretary. And I thought, Cheryl did this great job of saying, well, what makes him less qualified than an economist? I think what we're seeing here is people who rotely support the structure as it's always been. Well, because we've always had an economist. Or is it simply that those people voiced concepts that you rotely believe in because you don't dare to ask questions? I think that the radical nature of this administration is simply that they didn't take what was fed them from a prior administration, and this is how it's always done. And we are better for it, and healthier for it, and freer for it. And I hope that Ms. Cheryl Hines is better for her interview, too, and I hope she sells lots of books.
You know what I love about what you're saying, Emily? You're pointing out the fact that she was ready for the interview. I don't know that I'd ever thought that much about how Cheryl Hines votes or what her politics are or anything. She's just really talented as an actress and very funny. but she came with the 90% of HA secretaries were not in the medical field. Like, she was really ready for that moment. Kennedy.
Yeah, but this shouldn't be about her husband. I mean, I think that's overtly sexist. Also, if her husband were still philosophically not aligned with Trump and running against him, then Sonny Austin would have been like, oh my God, tell me more about circumcision. You're absolutely right. Trump hates it. He hates when you say that there's a link between Tylenol and circumcision and autism. Oh my God, we totally believe that here because we hate Trump. Like, that's what they would have done. It's because her husband is in this administration. And she was a Democrat for a long time. She was a full-throated Democrat. And, you know, she said she went from being an independent to a Democrat back to being an independent. And they could have asked her about the things in his movement. If they have to focus on her husband, then find the things in the MAHA movement that you think are important. Like, you know, the chronic disease and obesity that we have in this country that we didn't have 40 years ago. You know, those are very important intersections that The View could focus on and educate their audience. But they chose to be polemic and argumentative. And I think there are plenty of Republicans who would love to go on there and destroy them. I think they're the ones who are afraid of real debate. That's why they have Alyssa Farah in the conservative seat, because she is weak and spineless.
Yeah, I mean, I read that President Trump even was commenting, she used to work for me, basically doesn't know who she is now.
This is your public service alert that every member of the cast of The View voted for Kamala Harris. So that's the perspective they're coming from. Every single last one voted for Kamala Harris to be president. So Cheryl Hines was walking into the lion's den when she went into The View. Also, public service reminder that The View had Dr. Anthony Fauci on. Had him on from what I just looked up briefly, I believe it was 2024. So where were the questions about COVID misinformation to Dr. Anthony Fauci? Dr. Anthony Fauci said, you don't need a mask. And then he admitted he was saying that to save it for healthcare personnel so that there wasn't a shortage. Then he said there was one mask that we needed. Then it was back to no mask if you're vaccinated. Then it was 2 masks. And then I remember he was asked in December of 2021, close to 2 years into COVID, think about this, 2 years in, he's asked, will we get to a point where we are not wearing masks on airplanes? I don't think so, he said. So if it were up to Dr. Fauci, we'd all be still masked on airplanes. He went on The View, and the Kamala Harris cast members refused to ask him about any of his misinformation to the degree they did with Cheryl Hines.
Well, but to your point, they voted for her.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Day 15 of the government shutdown. Democrats are doing everything but working on reopening Congress. That was Democrats storming Speaker Mike Johnson's office, one of them berating a Capitol officer. So who is to blame for this shutdown? Look at this poll. Voters actually say it's Republican. Funny, because it was Democrats who voted to support similar extensions 13 times before. So what's the issue this time? Meanwhile, President Trump isn't worried. He says he's already cutting the red tape and will reveal Friday which Democrat programs are on the chopping block. Joining me now is someone who is running for Congress in Texas. He is a congressional candidate, and he's a former Major League Baseball great, a Texas Ranger, Atlanta Brave, New York Yankee great. It is Mark Teixeira.
Thanks for having me, Will.
Running for Congress. You've already done your introductory interview, so we don't have to go through that today together. But it's awesome that you're choosing to seek to serve. I know that's big for you, but we can just address that shortly. You've made a ton of money, Mark. You're already famous. You're going to go down in the history books in baseball, and you're doing this because you want to serve?
Exactly. That's really what this is all about, Will. You know, I've got a lot of things that I could be doing, but I love this country. This country is worth fighting for, and we need strong leaders in Washington. I think what you just talked about just shows how weak leadership has been in Washington, especially on the Democratic side. We need Republican leadership to counteract some of the craziness that we're seeing from the left.
Well, let's do two things. Let's first address what we just saw. You just saw Democrats there out in front of Speaker Mike Johnson's office. You want to be a part of that body. What do you do here about this government shutdown?
Well, you tell the Democrats to do their job first and foremost. This sets a terrible precedent. Elections have consequences. The losing side of an election knows that they're not going to get everything they want the next time a bill is passed or a budget is passed. And so you have to accept that maybe you're not going to get your way. The Democrats are saying, no, we don't accept that. We're just going to shut the government down, and we're going to make Americans, we're going to make military pay for us complaining that we're not getting our way.
I want to be clear about something. something. Republicans have put forward a clean CR. That's a clean, continuing resolution. They've attached nothing new to it. No cuts, no additions. In the past, and in a moment of clarity and honesty, CNN's Jake Tapper said this out loud. He said, "We have always criticized the party who voted against the clean CR." That would be, in this case, Democrats. So in the past, we would have criticized Democrats for shutting down the government, trying to put some rider or attachment to a clean CR. Why is that not happening now? Why do you see that poll where Republicans are getting the blame for the shutdown?
I don't. First of all, I don't trust polls. Second of all, I think there's a lot of Trump derangement syndrome still going on. And as long as there are Democrats and there are people out there that say everything that Republicans do is bad, even if it's reasonable, this is reasonable. Hey, listen, you want to negotiate on some things? All right, give us a few weeks. We'll negotiate, but don't shut the government down and hold the American worker, the American military personnel hostage because you haven't gotten your way up to this point.
Yeah, you would think the public would punish that kind of intransigence. They point to Republicans having the House, the Senate, and the presidency. But to be clear, and to help Jasmine Crockett, another congressional member here in Texas, it takes 60 votes in the Senate. That's the math. That means Democrats have to vote for the CR.
Yes, and here's the thing. I understand that a lot doesn't get passed when you don't have big majorities. And we have to work across the aisle every now and then, but we're not going to negotiate with terrorists. We're not going to negotiate with a party that says, hey, if we don't get our way, if we don't change the rules, then I'm going to close the government down. That's not fair to the American people. It's not fair to all the Republicans that are trying to do this the right way and say, hey, just give us a few more weeks to negotiate. And I just believe that Democrats are being unreasonable.
All right, Mark Teixeira running for Congress here in Texas, Central Texas, the Hill Country, right outside of Austin and San Antonio. Kerrville, by the way, the home of a terrible disaster this past summer, would be in your district, Mark. We wish you the best of luck and hope to see you up here